Exposing Taxpayer-Funded Animal Cruelty, the Truth About Inhumane Experiments. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this without bursting into tears. What I have read and what has been exposed on the Doge-tracking.com website just appalls me, makes me want to cry, makes me want to destroy, makes me so angry that I can barely contain it. And if you love animals, whether it's dogs or cats or monkeys or you got a pet rat, there's no way you can get through this without experiencing the same disgust and desire to expose everyone and make someone pay. Dr. Fauci's money business. $33.2 million to run NIH's Monkey Island. What's known to South Carolina locals as Monkey Island is Dr. Fauci's 3,000 monkey colony raised on a state-owned island. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, signed a $33.2 million contract with a local business to house, feed, and care for these monkeys before they shipped to research labs around the country. The federal government established the colony in the late 1970s through the multi-million-dollar contract to care for the monkeys changed hands a few times. NIH also paid millions to a large pharmaceutical company to maintain Dr. Fauci's Monkey Island. Monkey business is big business. I'm going to put right here that Dr. Fauci needs to be charged. He is a sadist. NIH's meth head monkeys. National Institute of Health funded researchers at the University of Mississippi Medical Center gave lab monkeys meth in the morning and tracked the monkeys' sleep habits through the implanted wire leads running subcutaneously from the head incision to the eye orbit, exiting the eye orbit from underneath the upper eyelid. The study was funded by portions of 4 NIH grants and brought to this person's attention by the White Coat Waste Project. Over 100,000 Americans die of meth overdoses every year as these dangerous drugs pour across our open borders. Why? We know what meth does. Why do we have to study it on monkeys? Why have to study it on animals at all? This is cruel, it's sadistic, and someone needs to pay. I don't care who it is, but someone needs to pay. Dr. Fauci, again, 477,000 transgender monkey study. Under Dr. Fauci, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, was back in the business of wasting your money torturing animals. This time, instead of tormenting puppies with ravenous sandflies, a Florida lab is trying to feminize male monkeys. That's right, NIAID is using over $470,000 of your tax money to fund the forced feminization of male rhesus macaques. Utilizing taxpayer funds from NIAID, a Florida lab set out to examine what would happen if female hormones were given to male monkeys. After receiving the hormones, biopsies from the forced feminized male monkeys were tested to see if they were susceptible to HIV. NIH's Monkey Casino, Gambling for Drinking Water. 2 laboratory monkeys at the University of Minnesota faced high stakes as their access to drinking water hung in the balance, contingent upon their willingness to embrace what researchers termed gambling. To study the region of the brain that impacts risk-taking choices, parts of monkeys' skulls were removed and their brains were injected with tracers and monitored as they gambled between 2 different options presented to them on 2 screens. Test subjects were given low-risk, low-reward choice and a high-risk, high-reward option, with the monkeys choosing risk over reward more than 70% of the time. The study, funded under the NIH National Institute of Mental Health $1.9 million grant and a NIH National Institute of Drug Abuse $1.8 million grant. On the same vein, in 2014, the late Senator Tom Coburn, Republican out of Oklahoma, published his annual waste book exposing, among other waste, a 170,000 National Science Foundation study making monkeys gamble. As I have highlighted, 9 years later, the NIH is still actively studying the gambling choices of monkeys. Can we get out of the monkey gambling business already? Disgusted yet? Oh, it gets better. Oh, rats. HHS spends nearly $500,000 on a study of lonely, starved rats. Department of Health and Human Services spent $419,000 to determine if lonely rats seek cocaine more than happy rats. Despite spending over $1 billion to try and solve the drug crisis, cocaine, one of the most harmful and addictive drugs, continues to gain popularity in communities nationwide. Significant funding has been allocated to the study of cocaine addiction, but there seems to be no solution in sight. This raises the question, how are these scientific studies and grants really using your tax dollars? One of these studies examining cocaine to study whether rats placed in positive environments would be more likely to abstain from cocaine than rats in negative environments. After 4 weeks, researchers compared the two groups' reactions. To no one's surprise, the rats subjected to starvation and the more isolated environment sought their cocaine-associated compartments more than those in the enriched social environment. These types of results aren't limited to just rats. We saw a clear example of these behaviors in the real world during the federal government's unscientific COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020. Following lockdowns, NYU determined the isolation of people led to increased levels of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and drug usage. Oh, good. It's not the first time the U.S. government has experimented on its own citizens, and I kind of wonder if it will be the last. USDA's cutting-edge research, walking hot dogs. When you walk outside in the summer, you get hot. When Labrador retrievers are walked outside in the summer, they also get hot. Getting hot while walking outside in the heat might be obvious to you, but the United States Department of Agriculture allocated cutting-edge research funding to support summer study that walked 16 dogs of 2 different colors and measured their rectal temperatures. Researchers found the Labrador fur color did not affect their body temperatures after a hot summer's walk. That's it. That's the taxpayer-funded cutting-edge study. Russian cats on a treadmill studies funded by part of a $2.7 million NIH grant. After having their brain stems snipped, Russian cats were forced to walk on a treadmill in Russian labs. This is all thanks to U.S. taxpayers footing the bill. Russian scientists, funded with your money, posted videos of their cat walk studies, which showed shaved cats hooked up to electrodes and struggling to walk on a treadmill. These catwalks were part of a $2.7 million NIH grant given to a researcher at the Georgia Institute of Technology. I have cats, so yeah, I'm taking this a little hard. Cats having their brain stems cut so they could be studied. And why are the U.S. taxpayers funding this in Russia? Spinning kittens for science and motion sickness. The National Institutes of Health spent $1.5 million on a study of waste and cruelty. If you learned that your money is being used to electroshock young kittens, torturing them for hours on end and to the point that they vomit, would you believe it? Since 2019, $1.5 million plus worth of taxpayer money has been going to these medieval-type experiments. This is not some distant dystopian future. It's happening right now at the University of Pittsburgh, courtesy of a grant from the NIH. In these nightmarish experiments, female cats are the preferred victims, selected because they are supposedly more amenable to the relentless, inhumane treatment they're subjected to. These kittens, often just 4 to 6 months old, are first trained to endure long periods of restraint. They're tied down for hours at a time and for weeks on end. The goal? To force them into submission so that they no longer resist the torture that awaits them. Once sufficiently trained, these kittens are strapped to a hydraulic table that tilts and spins them in all directions, side to side, up and down in a full 360 degrees, sometimes completing an entire rotation in just 5 seconds, all in a gruesome effort to induce severe motion sickness. And if that wasn't enough, their eyes are subjected to bright flashing lights, and if the spinning and lights don't do the trick, the researchers inject copper sulfate directly into their stomachs to guarantee that the kittens will vomit. In an experiment that can only be described as medieval, some of these kittens have holes drilled into their skulls, allowing the researchers to lock their heads into place during the spinning and shocking. But these aren't just ordinary cats. They're zombified before the real torment begins. Through a process known as decerebration, the researchers sever or completely remove parts of the kitten's brains while they are still alive. This leaves the kittens alive but devoid of any cognitive function, turning them into unresponsive shells that can be spun, shocked, and abused without resistance. Imagine the suffering, the disorientation, the utter helplessness these animals must be feel. And it's all being done with your money. More than $1.5 million of it. Catstipated. Department of Defense, DOD, spent $10 million plus on Orwellian cat experiment. In the scene that seems more fitting for a horror movie than for a real world, the DOD, under Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, funneled over $10 million of taxpayer dollars into grotesque and extremely invasive experiments on cats at the University of Pittsburgh. Researchers at the University of Pittsburgh sliced open the backs of male cats to expose their spinal cords, then inserted electrodes which fired off electric shocks while the incision was still open to make cats have an erection. But the horror doesn't end there. These cats were then subjected to even more electric shocks, sometimes up to 10 minutes at a time, before having their spinal cords severed to paralyze their lower bodies. And just for good measure, the shocks continued for another 10 minutes. All this in the name of science. If you thought that was bad, brace yourself. In another DARPA-funded experiment at Pittsburgh, they attached electrodes to cats' spinal cords and inserted condom balloons into their colons and marbles into their rectums. The objective, to force these poor animals to defecate the marbles via electric shock. One particularly unfortunate cat had to endure 11 minutes of relentless shocks just to expel 4 marbles. Apparently, nothing says national defense quite like torturing cats to poop marbles. As a Christian, I know I'm supposed to forgive. But right now, I want every scientist, I want every Department of Defense scientist, everyone who participated in the torture of animals to burn in hell for eternity. And I believe they will. It's sadistic, it's evil, it's demonic, and I want them to suffer. I just can't express how upset I am about what our taxpayer money, my money, the money I've worked all my life to send to the government, has been used to pay for hurting, torturing, murdering kittens and dogs and monkeys and rats. And what other kind of animals have they tortured? I want them to suffer. Okay, I had to take a break for a minute. The only comfort I have right now is that I believe every one of those poor tortured animals, be it kitten or dog or monkey or whatever, whoever, whichever, is now in a much better place. And I believe that's heaven, and I believe they're having their best life right now, totally forgetting what humans did to them. If you'd like to know why I believe that our animals go to heaven, check out the book, Hey Mom, This Is Great. Cats and Dogs Do Go to Heaven. I wrote it, and it relates some of my experiences and scripture why I believe this. Check it out. It's on Amazon. Y'all have a good day. Like and subscribe if you would. God bless. Bye-bye.